Hello, and welcome back to another Star Trek Borg episode review, as we've finally made it to the Voyager era of Borg episodes. Now, before I begin this review, I want to talk about some episodes that I won't be reviewing in this series. Starting off with Season 3, Episode Unity. I just decided not to review this one. However, for the others, I do have a valid point. Those episodes being Season 4, Hope and Fear, Season 5, Infinite Regress, Season 6, Tinker, Tender, Dr. Spy, Season 6, Child Play, Season 7, Flesh and Blood, Season 7, Shattered, and Season 7, Q2, most of the Picard episodes, as well as a few episodes from Lower Decks. The reason being is because the Borg are more of a cameo in these episodes, except for the Picard ones, as that's more intertwined with the plot. So I'll just save that for when I go to do full season reviews of the Picard show. The other thing that I want to talk about is how, during the production of the second TNG movie, First Contact, the Voyager writers, for the first two seasons at least, were not allowed to have the Borg in it. And then once 1996 happened, with First Contact coming out, as well as the start of season 3 of Voyager, that is when we get to actually see the Borg for the first time, with a dead drone in the season 3 episode, Blood Fever. And then again, we got to see XBs in the episode Unity. Scorpion Parts 1 and 2 to me feels just like the best of both worlds Parts 1 and 2. However, I definitely think Scorpion Part 1 and 2 is the stronger two-parter compared to the best of both worlds Parts 1 and 2, which I will hopefully get to explain during this review. With that being said, let's dive right into this review. The episode opens with some Borg getting destroyed by an unknown energy blast. This being the hook to the episode, as prior to this, the Borg have always been seen as a formidable foe that always takes an armada from Starfleet to take down at least one Borg cube, whereas this energy beam manages to take out a few cubes like it was nothing. So we then cut to Janeway in the holodeck trying to convince Leonardo da Vinci to allow her to rent a space for her to do some artworks. When she gets a call that she needs to make her way to engineering. When she makes it there, she is informed that the probe they had sent out was taken in by the Borg, which means the Borg are aware of Voyager's presence, and it also signals to them that they have finally entered into Borg space. With that, they start to prepare for the eventuality of an encounter with the Borg. Whilst this is happening, Harry Kim, the forever ensign, has been keeping track of Borg activity when he suddenly gets a ping of multiple Borg cubes heading their way. 15 to be exact. Well, thankfully they do just move on, except for one cube. That stays behind rather briefly to scan Voyager and then links back up with the other cubes. Janeway orders them to keep an eye out for those Borg as they continue to make their way to the Northwest Passage, a passage of space that seems to be devoid of the Borg, which makes it perfect for them to skeeter on out of Borg space. However, later on they discovered that all 15 Borg cubes have been destroyed, which shocks them because, as I mentioned, it takes an armada just to take down one Borg cube for them. Granted, yes, Starfleet has made their own ships to take on the Borg, this ship being one of them, the Intrepid, but it still shocks them nonetheless. So they, of course, go to investigate what could have done this, you know, because they might be able to make allies with them to be able to then, of course, safely navigate Borg space. They spot one of the ships attached to what's left of one of the Borg cubes, and an away team beams over. So they take some data of what was going wrong, and that is when the Forever Ensign gets struck by one of these new aliens. Whilst back on the ship, they figure out that the Borg refer to them as species 8472. In the beta canon Star Trek Online game, the species 8472 gain a new name of the Undine. So for the rest of this video, I will be referring to them as the Undine, as it's much easier for me to type out Undine rather than constantly having to type out species 8472. The Doctor comes up with a way to save Harry Kim, the Forever Ensign, by using some of the Borg nanobots to infiltrate his bloodstream and assimilate the invasive thingamajig that the Undine have given to Harry. They make it to the Northwest Passage, and it's also here that they realize that it's full of the Undine. So, shit out of luck, what's there to do? But to make a deal with the devil himself, Janeway devised a plan to make an alliance with the Borg, show them what they have come up with as a way to attack the Undine, and potentially use that as a bargaining chip to be able to move through Borg space more quickly. So that's what they do at the behest of all of the senior staff. So Voyager then arrives in one of the where some Borg are, there's some planets as well as a couple of cubes. And I've always been interested to see what a Borg planet would look like. Now, again, I know in the beta game Star Trek Online that we do kind of see that, but it's also not the same as what I kind of want to see. But yeah, Janeway lays out the proposition to the Borg, which they use a tractor beam, and then beam Janeway over to the cube. And just before they can iron out any details, the Undine show up and blow up the planet. And in that crossfade of destroying one of the planets, two of the Borg cube gets destroyed. But the cube with Janeway and having Voyager as the tractor manages to escape, and then the season 3 ends. Scorpion Part 1 is on par with The Best of Both Worlds Part 1, though I would put The Best of Both Worlds Part 1 at slightly higher than Scorpion Part 1. It just depends on my mood. Whilst, yes, this episode does introduce us to the Undine, or species 8472, that is so powerful that even the Borg can't not only assimilate them, but they also can't defeat them without the help of Voyager and her crew. But to me, The Best of Both Worlds is stronger because of that build up to the Borg showing up, to them revealing that they wanted to get Jean-Luc Picard, use him as an emissary, and then assimilate him into Locutus, and just that build up to that, to me, is superior than Scorpion Part 1, but like I said, they're nearly neck and neck. There's also a popular fan theory going around that links this two-parter to the First Contact movie, where the reason the Borg went to go to Sector 001 to attack Earth and then travel back in time to prevent First Contact happening with the Vulcans is because they are at war with the Undine. They're losing, so they want to have a tactical edge. That edge, travel back in time, assimilate the Alpha and Beta quadrant in the late 21st century. That way they have that upper leg to hopefully defeat the Undine. Episode 2 picks up right where we last left off, but with the Borg shields being down, Chakotay orders that Janeway be beamed back on board, as well as trying to find a way to get rid of the tractor beam. However, they're struggling to beam Janeway back, which is when Janeway hails them and informs them that they have reached an agreement that this cube will bring them out of Borg space whilst they work on the bioweapon, and for Tuvok to beam over to assist her. While over there, the Borg try to give Tuvok and Janeway a receiver so that way they can hear the collective instead of having to speak aloud, which doesn't go over well with both Janeway and Tuvok. So Janeway proposes that they have an emissary to deal with, and that is when we get introduced to Jerry Ryan's 7 of 9. As they're making their way out of Borg space, an Undine ship shows up, and the Borg cube sacrifices itself to protect Voyager as it's nearly defeated. But before that, within a split second, Janeway is hit with an energy beam, and they manage to quickly beam over to Voyager, so Janeway and Tuvok survive, as well as a handful of drones, including 7 of 9. Janeway has suffered some neurological damage and has to be put into a coma, leaving Chakotay in charge. But before she gets put under, Janeway insists that the Alliance continue no matter what. But because Chakotay has been against this from day one, the Alliance falls flat. And then, after over 4 million drones have been destroyed by the Undine, the Borg on Voyager are ordered to bring Voyager into the fluidic space, the place where the Undine come from. And when they attempt to do that, Chakotay decompresses the cargo bay too, killing all the drones except for 7 of 9 because she's going to become a regular after this. And it's also here that it's revealed that the Borg were the ones to infiltrate fluidic space and were the ones who dealt the first blow to start the war between themselves and species 8472. After this, Janeway wakes up and is obviously very pissed off the fact that the Alliance has broken down the because Seven ordered them to go 40 light years back in the opposite direction to rendezvous with a different cube. And so Janeway and Chakotay have a lover's tiff. Yes, I am one of those that ship Janeway and Chakotay together. I have since the start of Voyager when I first watched it, as well as especially because of Prodigy Season 2. Anyway, they formulate a plan to trick Seven, and so Janeway says that Chakotay has been confined to the brig, and that they eventually use the bioweapon and destroy 4 of the Undine ships. They make it back from fluidic space into normal space. A bunch of Undine show up, and then they immediately go back to their own fluidic space. And this is when 7 of 9 attempts to assimilate the crew of the Voyager, but they use Chakotay to break her connection to the collective because remember, he was briefly connected with the XBs in the episode Unity. And with that, the episode ends. So, part 2 to Scorpion ends a lot stronger than the Best of Both Worlds Part 2 because there's no put Borg sleep, go, ship go boom situations. It actually is more interesting than that. And it's because of that, I find this episode to be a bit better. Yes, like I said in my Best of Both Worlds review, I really did not like that ending. I thought it was a bit of a letdown, as well as it was overhyped. Whereas this episode wasn't overhyped for me, so obviously I went in and loved it. With that being said, that wraps up this review. Now, the Star Trek Borg episodes are going to go on a little bit of a hiatus, because with November being just around the corner, November is trilogy month for me. So I don't have a time slot available for that. So hopefully they'll be back in December as we continue on reviewing all of the Borg episodes, excluding the ones that I mentioned at the beginning of this review. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all on Monday for my review of Zombieland. I'll see you all next time.